All right, let's be honest for a second. People talk about health, they talk about diet, exercise, maybe even medication. Real health itself is very complicated. I'm Brandy, Dr. Brandy, nurse practitioner, and this is the Real RX, where we're going to talk about things that actually affect your health, like stress, like relationships, like hormones, your work, and just everyday life pressures and stressors that we tend to forget that our body and our minds and our spirits have to be well aware of in order to have a true healthy life, let alone a good quality of life, right? And today I want to talk about something that I often see as a provider or clinician, and it's about stress. A lot of people come in saying, "Hey, there's nothing wrong with me. I don't understand this. I don't understand that." Sometimes they say, "I don't know. I think I've just had a stressful day," or I think, and it's not always that. It's so much more to that. People just live a lot of this every single day and don't even realize it. So that's why, my approach as a clinician is to sit down and have a deeper conversation with you and to make sure that I'm asking about all the possible things that can make a problem for you or make you feel like you've changed or make you feel like something is wrong but not wrong. You're like, I check my blood pressure, I'm getting my sleep, I'm doing all these things, I'm even showing up to the gym, but you still can't figure out what's going on. A lot of people just really don't understand that they're dealing with chronic stress, and they don't understand how it really could affect them holistically. And I say holistically, not in the sense of natural herbs and oils that most people would think that I'm saying. I'm saying holistically with a W, like your whole everything. And again, people just say things like I'm exhausted, I can't sleep, or I'm sleeping too much, or I just notice that I keep gaining weight. And a lot of times it's, most people that are at 30 and over, all of a sudden they realize their metabolism is not working the same and they're trying to figure out why. And some people are very dedicated to showing up to the gym and to eating healthier or managing, what they eat. And some people say, "Oh, I don't eat that much." But you know what? That can be stressed too, and that can affect your metabolism, you know? And some people say, "I feel anxious all the time. I always feel like something is going on. I always feel like something is going to be wrong." And this can be as an adult, this can be as a teen, even a child, or even, our older elderly counterparts. So we have to pay attention to all of those signs and those words that are coming out of our mouths or, our family member or friends, because those are often keys to something bigger. Not all the time, but oftentimes it is. And we have to know when to say, "You know what? Let's stop. Let's investigate a little bit and let's figure out if there's something deeper that we need to pay attention to." But what they're really describing oftentimes is just their nervous system that's being struck by a stress mode that's it's been in for so long. It's like sometimes you're always working, 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 or moving, 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 or doing, 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 and you don't even realize that you're in this fight or flight type mode for a long time and for an extended period of time. And we do that, men and women, children, we all do it. And oftentimes it's such a extended time frame that we don't even realize that we're doing it. But eventually our body says, "You know what? I'm tired of feeling like this. What are we doing? Are we going to calm down? Are we going to relax? Are we going to take some of this stress off our organs, our bones, our skin, our hair?" But it just starts reacting because it's like, okay, so this is how we are. Well, we need to adjust this and we need to adjust that. And it doesn't always reflect in the way we want it to reflect. It doesn't come out looking good for us. It starts reflecting how our skin looks. It reflects how our bellies look. It reflects, often how we see, what our blood pressure looks like, whether or not we're getting a full night's rest. And then that starts creating all these other things that start popping up. And you're like, "Wait a minute, yesterday I didn't have hypertension. And now 2 weeks later, I got hypertension. What is happening?" So we have to pay attention to these signs that are popping up. And I know that we live our life in a rush and in the moment a lot of times, but we don't pay attention to those significant signs. So, like our brain perceives stress like, okay, we got to release these hormones. One of the first ones is cortisol. Now, There's many of hormones that play into this, but cortisol is like one of those first signalers that come out and say, okay, our body has to adjust. We have to do this. We have to do that. It's just like when you're in that moment of, crisis and your adrenaline picks up and you all of a sudden you're stronger and more smarter. You're thinking faster, you're running faster in that moment because it's like all of a sudden your body knows which hormone we need to start, secreting. And then we need to give a little of this and we need to give a little of that. And all of those things can start playing a role and drain us overall, and drain our bodies significantly. So when the cortisol oftentimes, which is what stays pretty high, especially in chronic stress and inflammation, oftentimes, your body starts feeling like, it starts affecting your sleep. It starts affecting your energy levels. It starts decreasing your metabolism oftentimes. Sometimes some people, it increases it, but a lot of people, it'll slow it down because, being hungry is not really the focus or eating is not really the focus. It's like, let's hold on to whatever we can hold on to because we got to be ready. It can affect your mood. It can make you more depressed. It can make you more anxious, um, it can also affect your immune system, which is one of the things that is the most important thing when it comes to something like this, because that's how we end up creating a lot of chronic illness for ourselves or acute illness for ourselves, and all of a sudden now you got a cold and you're like, it's 80 degrees outside. Why I got a cold? Or all of a sudden your blood pressure is higher, all of a sudden your glucose is higher. And cortisol is supposed to do that. Because again, your body is protecting itself. It's working hard to figure out how do we adjust and make sure that we are protecting ourselves and we're not going to fall apart. But eventually that overproduction and that overcorrecting, it does turn into exactly that, where we're actually overcorrecting and doing too much to where your body is just feeling off constantly and you're like, why? And so we have to think about those things. It's sometimes a little difficult to realize those things because we're so busy caught up in our life, our everyday life, dealing with this thing and that thing. But it's important to take a moment and stop, especially when you know that your body is just doing something different. One of the most common patterns I see, someone just comes in and says that they're just always exhausted. They may say, hey, I used to be anemic way back when, or hey, I just started this new job, or I got this new position, or, me and my significant other happened to, break up about a year and a half ago. And I've just realized I'm just going through. So, it's so many different things that, people just all of a sudden realize. And then they say things like, oh, but I've been working out 4 days a week. I've been eating my green leafy vegetables and fruits more, or I've decided not to eat chicken and fish and chicken and beef anymore. Or my favorite one, I don't eat pork anymore, but I like bacon. So, all these different things that people are trying to do to enhance their health, they'll say, oh, I'm doing intermittent fasting. And people have to understand that all of these different things that you're doing only affect certain parts of you. You understand what I'm saying? It doesn't affect necessarily the full gamut of what it is that you're trying to accomplish. So we have to understand that when we're trying to improve our health, you can't improve one portion of your health. You have to look at the whole picture of improving. You cannot just say, I just want to get rid of my belly fat. No, there's no such thing as just getting rid of your belly fat. Now we have to work on mindset. Now we have to work on how do we increase our muscle mass, because everything is not just fat. Sometimes it's your muscles that have gotten loose. And fat is just sitting on top of that, So we have to look at that as something like we have to look at our whole body. We have to look at our mindset. We have to look at, are we sleeping well? Are we eating well? We're not just using medication to make these things happen for us. We're utilizing our lifestyle and we're looking at the whole person, our whole person. The same way you want me to look at you when you're in my office or any provider's office for that. Now, we want you to do the same for yourself at home. And a lot of times, once we start getting in and people start realizing when they're saying these symptoms to me, we have to all both start analyzing their whole life. Like, what do you do for a living? How long have you been doing that? Has there been any change there? How are your relationships with your coworkers? How are your relationships at home? Who do you have as a support system? Who is helping you when you need to be free? What kind of things do you do for fun? How often are you drinking alcohol? things of that nature that all contribute to stress and how we manage it, how we handle it, which also can be contributories as to why certain things are changing in your body and are not working the way that they should be. How often are you sleeping? Oh, I get about 3 or 4 hours. I'm waking up at 2, and then I got to go back to sleep and wake again up at like 5:30. That's not good. you know? So we have to look at these things as a whole and make sure that we're paying attention to every part of ourselves. And that's kind of why you need to make sure that you get followed up with your doctor, not just when you're stressed, not just when things start going bad, but even once or twice a year, just for a general, hey, I want to make sure my blood work looks good. Or I just want to once over, or I just want to talk to you about some changes I've noticed over the last 6 months for myself or have happened for myself, just to make sure they're not affecting you overall. And oftentimes we don't know that. But the other part of it is, oftentimes we don't look at mental health. And when I say mental health, I'm not saying mental illness. We have to look at our health of our mental well-being. And oftentimes that is something that is important. I know a lot of people in our various cultures decide, hey, that's for the weak, but it's not. It's being able to have a third party who hasn't grown up with you, who doesn't see you all the time, that doesn't know all your personal business, that can objectively look and talk to you about these things and may even find things that are triggers for you, things that are creating worse situations for you or making you feel to the point where, you are going through some things or you could be making havoc on your own health. So these are just things to create. These are just things for you to think about when you're thinking about stress and you're thinking about your health overall. So I had someone write in on a question. This was Michaela from Seattle. She said, why do I feel exhausted all the time, even though my labs are normal? Most people think about maybe they have anemia or, some other acute illness or something that's happening. And this actually happens a lot. And people come and say, oh, I have a history of this and I have that. I'm like, okay, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's causing it, right? This could be a contributing factor, but it doesn't make it the sole factor, right? And I have to remind people, your labs can look normal, but that may not be the issue. Your body is responding to something. And we have to start reflecting, like I've said many times, over various areas of our life to see what could be potentially the problem that we are creating for ourselves. And we don't even realize it. It could be sleep, the lack of sleep. It could be emotional stress. It could be you're going through something with a significant other. You don't even realize it. Maybe you're lacking something in different relationships that you don't realize you're lacking and you're holding it in. And a lot of times you're just holding in things on the inside that you're not allowing to be freely discussed, expressed. Oftentimes you work 7 and 8 days a week. Well, there isn't even 8 days, right? But it feels like it. So, we're working so much. We're working 14, 16 hours in a day, and we're never really taking the time out to say, you know what? I need a night out. I need a Taco Tuesday. You know, I need a night out with my friends, or I need a night out with my significant other where we just do anything that we want to do that doesn't have to do with kids, family, or anybody. It's just us. We get to have fun, joking, and having a good time for a change. We have to look at all those things, but you also have to look at relationships. Relationships can put a lot of toll on you. Is this toxic? Is this not being resolved? Are these things continuing to be patterns? We have to look at all of those things, and relationships can kill you. And I don't mean that in the sense of someone doing anything to you, but you can make it so that you don't have the quality of life that you need. And next thing you know, you have high blood pressure, depression, cancer, or some other thing because you've allowed stress from something that in a relationship that has created a worse situation for you because you haven't been able to deal with it. You haven't been able to get past it. So people get stuck. People get stuck in this cycle of stress and don't realize that they're stuck. And some people do and just can't figure out how to get out of it. So let's talk about what the real RX is. The first thing is identifying whether the body is actually getting the recovery time it needs and that you even have the stress. That's one of the first things is, hey, am I having this? Is this what's going on? So how am I allowing my body to recover from the stress? Or am I still always in this fight or flight? Or am I still always going no matter what? I just brush it off and put it to the side. And, a lot of people had a lot of stress from work, home, um, even scrolling through their phone at night. The nervous system just doesn't shut down. You get on this phone and you're just scrolling on social media and you see something making you upset, or people that you're like, "Ooh, I can't believe this, that, and the other." And a lot of times it's like you have to let things go. You cannot allow anything and everything to be an emotional saddle. Your shoulders, you should notice your shoulders get a little heavier, or you might find yourself always tight like this, or you feel like you're slumped over all the time. That's stress. That's stress sitting on you. It's because you haven't found a way to pick yourself up and just sit up and say, "You know what? We're not doing this." And that's how we have to start living our life. You don't have to be always freaking sorry or accommodating to the whole world. Even at work, you have to be able to create boundaries for yourself to reduce that stress, because that's how you keep yourself healthy. That's how you keep yourself from being on 16 medications at 32. And I've had everybody from teenagers on up to be on medications, and the health varies across the board. And it's why. It's because of how their lifestyle is. Some people say, "Hey, I don't let certain things happen. I do this, I do that. I enjoy myself." And guess what? Oftentimes, those are some of the most healthiest people. But the people who work all day, who tend to constantly have, home issues, it can be a lot. They can go 10, 20 years without no problems, and then all of a sudden they wake up and they got all kind of health problems. Your bones hurt. You got the bags that you can't get rid of. You're starting to get bald. You have this belly that you're like, my legs don't match my stomach. My arms don't match it. We have to look at all of those things. We have to pay attention. The body needs periods of rest, period. That's just what it needs. It needs it in order to regulate stress and reduce it. If you continually keep going and going and going, you're never going to give your body what it needs. You need to always create space in your week for me time, for self-preservation, self-reflection. Let your body just do nothing. Have one day that you get to sleep in till 11 o'clock. And maybe you're not sleeping. You're just laying in the bed, and that's okay. Maybe there's an evening where you don't deal with anyone, anything, and you just decompress. And there's nothing wrong with that. Let's make it happen. There's at least every other week you hang out with a friend that you enjoy being around, that has the least amount of drama for you to have to worry about, and you guys just enjoy yourself, have a good time, laughing and joking and enjoying your whole lives together. And if you have that significant other, make it an appointment for the two of you guys to get together and enjoy me time together as well. Where it's stress-free. You're not talking about problems. You're not talking about this. You're just enjoying each other's company. You're having a good time. You're joking. You're laughing. You're not planning this or doing that or talking about this kid or talking about this person's mom. You're just talking about each other. You're being friends. That will create a whole lot of stress-free energy. You need to do a little exercise, even if it's just walking outside or sitting out on your porch or your deck. Find something creative that you really like to do. Find a new habit or hobby. Just find activities that enhance your endorphins, that make you feel good, that reduce the cortisol levels. That is going to be a big deal. Honestly, a lot of you, if you just went to your doctor and said, "Hey, can you check my cortisol level?" It's going to be high. And your doctor going to be looking like, "What is going on?" And so I want you to take the time out to find just even the smallest things that give you pleasure to help reduce that for you. And I want you to even take the time, even after watching this, to sit down and say, "You know what? Let me go back over my life over the last couple of weeks and let's figure out if there's something that I need to be doing different. How can I make myself a little better? How can I increase my endorphins? Am I doing any of these things?" And another practical step, an important step, is protecting your sleep. Protecting your sleep is super important. Make sure you're sleeping. If you know you're not getting at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night as an adult, you need to figure out why. And we need to start working on that immediately. And some of that is going to be getting rid of your phone at night. Some of that is going to be just taking a nice warm bath and having some quiet. Maybe listening to your favorite music, having a good diffuser with some lavender, some of valerian root, something that will just help to calm you down. Maybe it's just a nice warm tea. We have to practice sleep hygiene is what we call it. And those are creating, routines at night that will help to relax your body and reduce all that fight or flight feeling and that cortisol being up here, because our body needs that time at night to recover. That is when our body is doing all of this regenerating and changing and building and fixing. And you have to allow your body to have that time. Now, of course, our kids need a little bit more sleep than that because they're growing. So making sure your kids getting 8 to 12 hours of sleep at night. And I know our teenagers, they be like, I want to be up on the game. I want to play with my phone. But no, we need to encourage that for them as well. Because a lot of times that's why our teens have more anxiety, depression, or some of them end up having other mental health issues from just the littlest things that could have probably kept it at bay. So let's pay attention to that as well, not just for ourselves, but for the people that we love, our husbands, our boyfriends, our other significant others, our mothers, fathers, cousins, brothers, just it's okay to have these conversations. You don't have to tell them what to do, but definitely have them reflect on it for themselves. And if someone is feeling super exhausted regularly or unwell, it may just be worth getting seen. Even if you don't like going to the doctor, it may be worth getting seen. I know I have people say, as soon as I go to the doctor, something's wrong with me. Well, that's not true. It was already wrong with you. Just you didn't know. You were in the dark and you were happy with getting in the dark. But now that you know, you're kind of like, I don't know if I really want to know. So I'm encouraging you to definitely find out. It's better to know sooner than later. The longer you let this linger, the worse it is for you and the harder it is going to be for you to get resolution. And the more you're going to have to do to get there. And your providers can check things like hormones, of course, your cortisol level, your thyroid level, we have metabolic labs that we do sometimes, specialty labs. Of course, they'll do cortisol level. All of these things can be signs. I'm not saying these are the fix-alls and everything is going to show up abnormal because you have stress. What I'm saying is these are ways for us to start looking and identifying. Sometimes we have things like wrong with our body that absolutely no lab or diagnostic says anything. It's just how we're functioning. But now we have to find lifestyle ways to adjust it. But these are ways that you can at least identify if there is something there. And if it's not, then you have to go a different route in order to get where you need to go. So here's the part that people don't always like to hear. You can't separate health from lifestyle or mental health or your spiritual health for that matter. And when I say spiritual, I'm not talking about religion. We all have a spirit and we have to be able to keep it up to par. All of these things work together in tandem and we have to be able to start balancing them. Nobody's perfect at it. Nobody's going to be great at it, but we do have to adjust and try. Stress, sleep, relationships, and your environment that you're around, be it work, home, socially, they all play a role in how our body functions. They just do. Ignoring things and just saying and thinking that they're just going to disappear is not an answer. And you're definitely not going to get what you want out of it. Just saying. The body will definitely catch up with you. Just know that. You cannot keep running your body ragged, your mind ragged, and think that it's not going to catch up with you overall. It's going to show. Everything affects us. So with that being said, thank you. Thank you for coming through. Thank you for listening. This was The Real RX, and hopefully this RX will help you become a better you. I'm Dr. Brandy, nurse practitioner. Thank you for stopping by. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and comment if this happens to be you. Definitely follow up with your provider if you feel like this could be affecting.